Hello, Fairly Secret Music viewers. I'm David, your host. Today I'm going to do doom metal. So I wasn't going to start out. I wasn't going to have these two first bands in my video for two reasons. Well, the first one is Anathema. The reason I wasn't going to have them in the video is because they are no longer a doom band. They weren't a doom band until, or since the second album. This, I believe, is they have an EP, the Crestfallen EP, then this album, and then they have Pentecost 3, which had this cover, which was another EP. These two EPs, or two albums, pretty much make up all their doom stuff. There was another one called I want to say Silent Enigma or something like that. I don't have that album because that was when Vincent Cavan was just kind of learning how to sing, and he wasn't that great at that time. But this band is a virtual who's who of who was in the band. Darren White was their original singer, and he did a lot of stuff that was pretty much spoken word stuff, along with some kind of growls, I think. I haven't listened to these in so long, and that's kind of part of why I wasn't going to originally do them. Excuse me. And Darren White, I believe, was the original drummer when Cradle of Filth first started out, way before their first album. He did vocals on the first album on one track, the spoken word one, The Wolves in the Snow, I think. Dave Pybus was in this band. He was the bass player. A few albums, like the fifth album into their career. He also played with Cradle of Filth. Duncan Patterson of, I think, Antimatter. He went on to be with Antimatter and maybe a couple other things. He was the bass player. Martin Powell, who was in My Dying Bride, who played keyboards and violin. He was in Anathema for a while, and so was Sean Taylor Steels, who I think is the current drummer of My Dying Bride. I don't know. He was for a few albums after the original drummer left, and then he went away, and then he came back. But before he joined My Dying Bride, he was in Anathema. So these two albums, they're pretty good. If you like spoken wordy kind of doomy stuff, very, very sludgy, not sludgy, just very slow, brooding kind of doom with a lot of like kind of that British and European kind of feel to the doom. Give these a shot. The second band that I wasn't going to actually originally put in here, and it's mainly because I'm not so familiar with their stuff. I got a few more albums about a year ago, when their newest album came out. If I didn't add them to my doom metal video, I'm not even sure if he watches these, but my friend Anthony would be like, what the hell, where is Paradise Lost? You're doing a doom video and you didn't even add Paradise Lost. So I felt that I needed to. This is where Nick was very growly, very doomy on this. They started being a little bit more mainstream on this. I know Nick was, Nick was accused of sounding a little bit too much like James Hetfield on this one. This is Draconian Times. This one was Shades of God. I originally bought this because I love Dave McKean artwork, so that was kind of my way to get into Paradise Lost. I need my glasses adjusted. Also, I'm going to try to say amazing a lot less, because I've noticed on those last two videos, I say things are amazing way too much. But the music is pretty good. I always had a problem with their guitar solos. For some reason, I just didn't think they were that great. They got better as they went on, especially when they went, you know, whoops. Who's running this shit show? When they did 1 second, that's where Nick started singing. Sorry about the used price tag that's partially gone. This is where he started singing. This is where I actually really liked them. Another band that totally went complete 180 from how they sounded was Moonspell for their Sin Pecado album. That came out around the same time as this album, and I really liked when they did that. That was around the same time My Dying Bride did their one standout album called 37.34 Complete or something like that. All these doom bands were going so far away from what they originally started as. It was almost like they're having a midlife crisis or something like that. Anathema went away from the doom and has never went back. Paradise Lost, however, has went back. This is a pretty damn good album. I really like the singing and the growling. The music is just heavy, and finally the guitars kind of click with me. This album is the newest one. I'm not as familiar with this, so I can't really say that much about it. Plague Within is definitely, if you want later era, one where I would start, because it is really good. This one is pretty damn good, but I haven't listened to it enough to really talk about it. That was partially the reason why I didn't initially want to do Paradise Lost. Now we're going to get into the bulk of the bands that people may have not listened to, or they kind of just went under their radar as a doom metal band. Two of these bands, this band and the very final band, people really should know already. And you're probably saying, well, where's the Black Sabbath? Where's the Saint Vitus? People already know those bands, so it's kind of overkill to just put those in. I want to keep this video shorter than the last one. I think the last one was like 34 minutes. So, Candlemass are a band from Stockholm, Sweden. Sorry, I've done 3 videos tonight. All the love of the VC community and everybody just giving good comments and stuff just kind of fueled the fire and made me want to do some videos tonight. This is the only album with their singer Johan Lindqvist, and honestly, he is my favorite singer out of all the singers Candlemass has ever had. There's only one bad part on this album, and that's probably the intro to Demon's Gate. It sounds like a demon with a lisp, and it doesn't sound very evil at all. But this album starts with Solitude, the sitting here alone in darkness, waiting to be free, lonely, I'm forlorn, and crying. I think of those are the lyrics. I don't know if I don't sing them, I don't know. Which I think is funny that we make all these videos and we can't have any of the music in them. Otherwise, we might be taken down or copyright infringement or something like that. Honestly, I think these bands should be like, thank you, thank you for telling people about us that, might not know about us. I'm not saying I want that praise. I just think it's foolish that their labels or YouTube might take down the videos because we're playing like a 30-second snippet of things. I mean, I guess I could sing it, but that's kind of weird. So Solitude is a fantastic song. My favorite song on here used to be The Sorcerer's Pledge, and ends with like this huge da 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 down 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 down, and they have a female singer in there, and it was just fantastic. And Johann's vocals on this whole album are just amazing. I wish he had gone on to sing with them more than just this album. But my favorite song on here is the Blackstone Wielder, because there's one part where he's like, Blackstone Wielder has gone, whoa, whoa. And it is, I guess it's okay if I sing off the cuff. And just the way he sings it, there is a version live at Roadburn. I can't remember what year it was put out. The vinyl, it's a vinyl only release, and they have a new singer who does not do the vocals justice, and he is just, I wish they would have got Messiah back to just do just to do that. Honestly, I wish they would have gotten Johann, because Johann has sang with them like 25 years later or 30 years later. I'll let you know on the DVD. And this version, I'm not sure if these are remastered, but for a while they were doing them as 2-disc sets, and this has a bonus live CD, and this is live in '88. It's well worth it just for the main album, but if you do get it, look for the 2-disc versions of all of these. This is when they joined, I want to say they were Music for Nations in Europe, and in the US here, they were on Metal Blade. And I picked this album up after this one. And I was actually disappointed because all the songs were so slow and doomy, and I really loved bands like Fate's Warning, and I wanted guys going, wah, you know, and honestly, wait. Yeah, Well of Souls, I almost thought I put up the wrong CD. Well of Souls, he does a really high scream, and I thought that was great. He's never done it live in any version that I've heard, but on the album, it's fantastic. There is a line in one of these songs that I wanted to use as a band title. A friend of mine, Chris, he mentioned it, and I know he'll never do something, and we'll never do a project together because we don't even live in the same state, but I've always wanted to do a Doom project called The Hills of Tyburn. I guess the Tyburn Hills were where the gallows were in England, I believe, and I just think it would be a great band name, and I would love to do a Doom band. This is the first of three albums that has, again, a second disc, and there is an interview with almost the whole band. I think it is the bassist, the guitarist, the lead guitarist, and the singer, who is Messiah Morgion, I think his last name was. If you've seen a picture of Messiah, you know who I'm talking about. He always wore a monk robe, and you know, all their stuff, and I've said this in another video, if you liked one song by Candlemass, you liked them all. It's just like AC/DC, you know, they weren't reinventing the wheel every album. They were just, you know, putting snow tires on and just plowing through. And this album is fantastic. Not amazing, fantastic. Ancient Dreams is kind of like it's a different album. The band on the interview, this is another 2-disc set that has an interview. And I think the interviews are about a half an hour long, which is kind of cool. I can double check that really quick. The band started doing the production with this one producer who only wanted to use one guitar track. He didn't want to double any guitars, and they had to fight to get the guitars to be doubled on this album. They had to bring this, I think, back to the guy who mixed this so they could get a good sound. And I love how all of these album covers are so very ancient painting kind of things. This album has Mirror Mirror, which is a very upbeat, I think it even has double bass in it. By the way, I'm looking, the interview on this one lasts 24 minutes. So yeah, they're about right around a half an hour. This one, the band doesn't really think is that great, but the follow-up is. And this is an album that the bass player, who is the main songwriter, which is always kind of interesting, having the bass player be the main songwriter. This is, let's see, a 10-part or 11-part story of the Tales of Creation, and Under the Oak is on here. And Under the Oak was the second to the last song on their very first album, and it even said Under the Oak from the Tales of Creation Part 4 originally on the first version. I don't know if it has, I don't think it has it anywhere on this newer version, but this has an instrumental called Into the Unfathomable Tower. The whole thing is just nonstop, really fast tempo double bass, which was very surprising after hearing 3 albums where there was very little double bass and very little, really up tempo. Under the Oak this time is, of course, sang by Messiah. And again, this has an interview on it. I'm just trying to check to see how long each of these interviews are. For some reason, I'm just really curious right now as I talk to you, This was also the last album before they did a live album. They did a live album, and this also has Messiah on it. All right. Yeah, those interviews are about 24 minutes. This came out, this was the last thing they did for Metal Blade, and it's a really good live album. I had it on cassette when I was younger, and I finally got it on CD when, about 7 years ago, I decided I needed everything by Candlemass. Even these albums that I've only listened to 1 or 2 times, Chapter 2 had, this is a very odd thing, because Chapter 2 had everybody except for Messiah in the band at this time. It was the same lineup. They just switched it, and they had Thomas Vikstrom on vocals, and I don't know if he might be the guy who is singing on the Roadburn Epicus Doomicus live album, let me look for you for just a second. I'll see the releases here. It's going to tell me, right? No. Well, here's a weird thing. I guess that Live at Roadburn has Johann Lindquist, but he doesn't sing anything quite like he did on the original. I'll have to listen to that again just to see if it really is him. I'm looking on Discogs right now. This album is interesting. It had 2 albums in it. One is Abstract Algebra, sorry. I'm not sure about these cases that they've made where you have to kind of put the CD in like this rather than through the front. This actually this was Candlemass, but on guitar, on the Candlemass album, it has Michael Amott, who is from Candlemass, or not Candlemass, Carcass and Arch Enemy. This is another one, same with this album from the 13th Son, that I'm just not that familiar with. These are the 3 albums that I haven't really listened to a ton. Then came a reunion in 2002 with Messiah back on vocals. This is a 2-disc set. Fantastic. Messiah is at the top of his game. He sounds amazing. And then they did 1 studio album with him, just a self-titled album. The title, or the main video for this album was Black Dwarf. More upbeat, but just a great album that still had all of the qualities of the past ones with Messiah. They also did this 20-year anniversary DVD. This came out in 2007. So this is the last studio album that I have by them. After this, they did an album called King of the Grey Lands that had Robert Lowe from Solitude Aeternus. That was a good album. If I found it again, I probably would buy it, especially if it was used. His vocals on that album sounded pretty good, but whenever he did live versions of older songs, he would change the vocal melody or the phrasing, and it pissed me off. And the one live album, you can hear the audience sing almost more than you can hear him sing, and that also irritates the shit out of me. This live video is the 20th anniversary party, and they have they have Tony Martin from Black Sabbath. Johann Lindquist, for the first time, plays live with them. Robert Lowe sings. Michael Akerfeld from Opeth sings a song. I believe he sings... what song? He sings At the Gallows End. I was kind of unimpressed. JB from Grand Magus sings on this album, or on this live video. They also did this, which was a live concert called Curse of Candlemass, and this is with Messiah. And then live in 1990, plus 90 minutes of live and rare footage, they did this Candlemass DVD. There's the one thing on here is called The Documentary of Doom, and the other one is live at, I'm going to just put that name in front of you, live at whatever, I can't even pronounce that. So, that is Candlemass. Next band I want to talk about is Morgion, and they are a band that had like 2 albums and then kind of broke up with their main singer. bass player. Let me see if I'm trying to find out. So these were the two album covers. So Among Majestic Ruins and then Soliari. And I remember reading people talking about Soliari in like hushed tones, like it was like a holy grail of doom. And when it came out, I didn't really even bother with it because I believe it came out in 1993 or something like that. 94, July 94. And the other one came out in, no, Among Majestic Ruins came out in 94. Soliari came out in 98. Which honestly should have been a time where I should have paid attention to it. The first album is very doomy and death metal-y. The second one has a lot of really mellow parts that go into really heavy stuff with spoken word and death metal vocals. Listen to Soliari if you want to get into Morgion, and it's spelled Morgion. I don't know if you can tell, but one of my cats is down here, and he is having fits of madness. It is 12:16 in the a.m., and usually around midnight is when he will kind of start freaking out for some dumb reason. So, funny story, Jeremy Pinto was the bass player, singer of Morgion, and when I was selling a bunch of vinyl My Dying Bride albums for my nephew, I had a picture disc of Angel in the Dark River, and he bought it from me and said his buddy Andrew, who is in My Dying Bride, didn't even have that picture disc. Apparently he was going to start a new project. I told him to message me or email me if he ever got it done. I haven't heard from him since, and that's been like 5 years. They got another bass player or singer. I'm not sure what the lineup was with this, but Jeremy was gone by this time, so it was kind of a bittersweet, oh yay, there's a new Morgion, but how is it going to sound? It's interesting, but it was kind of a disappointment. Soliari is the one to start with, and then if you like that, go elsewhere. Or maybe, I don't know, maybe start with this one, or Among Majestic Ruins, and then Soliari will be the holy grail of the three. This band, Sira, this album is called Acme. They were a band from Poland, and I guess they are back together again. I got this band because I was really into My Dying Bride in, 95, 96 or whatever. And this album came out, and it was super hard to find, and there was a place called Root Cellar Records that finally got it. This band had a viola player, and my cat is going crazy. A viola player, two guitarists, keyboards, drums, and a vocalist who had a super low voice. And the guitarist, one of the two guitarists, did the death metal vocals. And it's very epic doom, but can be up-tempo. It especially got up-tempo with this album, which is called Did Tomorrow Come? You might find it under the name Will Tomorrow Come? The title track is supposed to be called Did Tomorrow Come? It's about a guy who is dying, and at the end he says, did tomorrow come? Like, am I still alive tomorrow? So, Will Tomorrow Come kind of changes the whole meaning of the song. This one, they got a little faster. They were pushing the envelope. They're trying new things. It is fantastic. It starts out with this kind of intro song that goes right into the second song. And the second song is very, it's more death metal than doom metal. But then you get Tom singing the really low stuff, and it is fantastic. They do some things on here that most doom metal bands don't do, except for Confessor, who I showed in the last video. They have a song called Rhea. It's spelled R-H-E-A. That is in measures of 7, and he's singing over. I think it goes da dun 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 or something like that. I remember it's in odd time of some kind. It might be 5s or something like that. I don't think I was singing it right. But this is a band, if you like My Dying Bride and or Opeth, give them a shot. This band, Saturnus, are from, I want to say they are also from Stockholm. I'm not 100% sure where they're from, but we loved this. Look at that band. Look at that. Okay, so they have... This guy ended up being the drummer, and he's like the wrestler down the street, and then you got, one of their kid brothers on keyboards. This was the guitarist. This is the vocalist, and that is the bass player. It's just a crazy mix. I mean, in the 90s, you normally didn't have a band that looked so different from one another. Especially because, let me find out their names. We had a field day trying to figure out who Brian Hansen was, because we thought, you have Thomas A. Jensen, Kim Larson, Brian Hansen, Jesper Solft, and Anders Roll Nielsen, and Brian Hansen is this guy on the end, the bass player, and it's just so great. We loved this band. And by we, I mean me and my nephew, who got me into My Dying Bride, my friend Corey, who also loved My Dying Bride. And these guys sound tons like My Dying Bride. They have spoken word and death metal growls. They're guttural, but when you can tell what he's saying most of the time, especially after you know the lyrics and stuff. They had a song called Christ Goodbye. Let me see. Well, the first song is Paradise Belongs to You. And in this album, you get bird chirping between every song. Paradise Belongs to You and Christ Goodbye and The Fall of Nickel. Those 3 songs are just brilliant. They followed it up with an EP that had 2 live songs, and it had Christ Goodbye and Fall of Nickel live, and they played perfect. It sounded just as good as a studio album. The third album that they came out with was this one, Martyr, and this was where their singer started doing more vocals that kind of sounded like Darren White from Anathema when he would kind of yell, sing, and it wasn't quite as good. When he did the spoken word stuff and the death metal stuff, the growls, along with the very doomy, very majestic music that was going on, that was when these guys were at their best. They have 2 or 3 albums after this that were even further down that path, less growls, less doomy stuff, or you know, kind of maybe a little less doomy and more just like kind of straight ahead metal or rock. I would get them if I could get them for a decent price, but they've always been just way too much for my interest level in them. And the band that I keep on referencing that is probably one of the biggest doom metal bands around. These guys started in, I believe, 1991. My Dying Bride. As the Flower Withers is a perfect combination of doom and death. And this album, Aaron does the death metal growls throughout the whole album. The production is somewhat lacking, but they followed this up with 3 EPs, and this is called Trinity. This is a collection of those 3 EPs. For a long time, those were the covers, and I think 1 or 2 of them were done by, originally done by Dave McKeon, and for a long time, those things went for way too much money. I can't read the type on here. I Am the Bloody Earth, and I don't know what the other 2 were called. But this collects all of them. They followed the EPs in the first album up with Turn Loose the Swans. This does a complete 180 shift from the death doom. This is very doomy, very majestic, but Aaron starts singing on this, and they do a song called Sear Me 1993 on this one, which is just Martin playing violin. That's right, Martin Powell. Played keyboards and violin for My Dying Bride, which was one of the reasons why I started playing cello in 1996. And it's just vocals and violin and piano, and that's it. And we were just blown away. My nephew, back in 96, got me into this band, not through this album, but with the follow-up, which was Angel in the Dark River. This one still does have the death metal growls. By the time you get to Angel in the Dark River, he is not doing the death metal growls at all. It's all clean vocals. Think of kind of a Peter Murphy meets Nick Cave kind of thing. If you haven't heard them before, with kind of whiny almost, he always does stuff like that. He's got a decent voice, and there's one album where after several albums of never hearing a harmony, he finally does a harmony, and it's almost like a moment of clarity. It's just like somebody just finally opened up the blinds and all the light shone through. But I hate the sun, so oh well. Angel in the Dark River starts out with a song called Cry of Mankind, and it has a guitar part that is looped. And when we saw them, they came here with Dio in 96. And I didn't stay for Dio, because Dio has always kind of bored me. I know, blasphemy. But we went for My Dying Bride, and they were fantastic, but they couldn't do Cry of Mankind because the effects loop wasn't working, and they had this. The guitar part was, and it just went throughout the whole thing, and the whole thing is about, I think, Satan and his tongue of thorns, and just great imagery with the lyrics. This, I think, Aaron was on top of his game lyrically with this album, and with this, and with the follow-up, Like Gods of the Sun. I'm just spacing titles. I've had this since it came out in this digipack. It's just hacked up because I listened to it so much. I even fell asleep one time with the booklet in my hands, and my friend Jen called me, and I woke up and like bent the thing in half. But this was the first printing, and I loved this album so much that I knew an ex-girlfriend was coming over, and I decided to run and get this for a friend of mine who said he wanted it really bad, and missed out on business time. Anyway, so they did this album, and this is the album, the tour that they played with Dio. They followed up with 34.788% complete. This was the album that critics and fans pretty much despised, and it's not as different as Paradise Lost 1 Second. It's not as different as what Anathema has turned into, but it's just an okay album. There are some good songs on it, some that they still play to this day in the live setting, but it's not one that you grab when you are thinking of My Dying Bride. This was also the last album with Calvin, who was their second guitarist, or the main songwriter of the band. And he stood behind this album, and a lot of it was him. And Aaron, I believe, I'm not sure. Let's see the songwriting credits on 34% complete. I think there always been a band that was like, hey, this song was written by My Dying Bride. They have a different drummer on this. This is the first one without their original drummer, which also could be a reason why it was just kind of eh. This is their first album with Sean Taylor Steels, who was from Anathema. He played on Anathema's Alternate 4, which is probably one of the best Anathema albums, in my opinion. You had a return to the death metal stuff. Light at the End of the World is a very long song that goes right into Fever C, and it ends, and it's just like boom, right in your face. He does the death metal vocals right at the beginning of Fever C. This is very majestic, very epic songwriting. Just, you have to be in a mood. And again, if you like one song, you should like them all. Then they followed that with The Dreadful Hours, which at first, and at this point, I was kind of getting tired of My Dying Bride at that time in my life. This was around the year 2000 it came out, something like that. Let me see. Yeah, 2001. A friend of mine and I used to call it the Dreadful Hour of Music. But now that I've given it a chance, it is a pretty damn good album. Let's see. My Hope the Destroyer, The Dreadful Hours. I believe the first... I'm still not quite as familiar with this. I'm even less familiar with this. Normally, I don't go, okay, I just have a promo of this. This is their live album, Voice of the Wretched. And this is good too, but at this point, I was kind of tired of them. It wasn't, well, even in 2004, when Songs of Darkness, Words of Light came out, I think I still bought this, but I wasn't really in the mood for My Dying Bride. But there's a song called Catherine Blake on here that is fantastic. There's another one called The Prize of Beauty, and in that song he does this spoken word thing kind of in the middle of it that is just fantastic. This was the album that really got me back into My Dying Bride. It's called A Line of Deathless Kings. So this was the last album that Sean Taylor Steele's played on. Oh, my air conditioner just went off. They had a drummer from another band that sounded very much like My Dying Bride, another British band. This one came out in 2006, and this is the album that he finally does a vocal harmony, and it's brilliant. It's just great. This starts out pretty strong. There's a couple songs around the end that aren't as good, but that drummer on this album pretty much kicked them in the butt and made them really interesting to me again. They followed that up with an Ode to Woe, which is a double CD, comes in a booklet, and it has the live show, and then it has a DVD of it. And the live show has 12. The live show has 12, and the DVD has 13. The Forever People is the bonus track on the DVD. It's pretty good. Unfortunately, they have a drummer that I don't like, who also, I believe, played on this album. And this is the album, I believe. Let me, here, I'll just let you look at that while I look at this. This is the album that had a female violin player who was just with the band for just the one album, and she just wasn't very good. I really don't like any of the violin playing on this album. There are some good tracks, but some of them kind of get ruined by that violin player. The next album, I believe, has Sean Steele's on drums again, and this is called A Map of Your Failures. This came on in 2012, at the end of 2012's, and they got a new violin / keyboard player who actually is pretty decent. None of them really hold a candle to Martin, but at least this guy is pretty decent. Sean Taylor Steele is playing drums on this one again, so the drumming is fantastic. There is a album called Barg Beast, which is an EP of a 20-plus minute song, and it sounds, the production is not very good, and I've never picked it up. Oh, geez. Let's see. It told me the battery is running low, and I have the light on. If you looked at the last two videos, I forgot to put that light on, so it's probably draining the battery quite a bit more. So they had an EP that was a 22-minute song or something like that, and it's not very good. I keep on meaning to buy it, but it comes now with the manuscript, which was 4 songs, and Only Tears to Replace Her With it's heartbreaking. That song is just heartbreaking. It's only 4 songs, but it's well worth the price of admission. And the last album that they've put out is Feel the Misery. And unfortunately, again, Sean Steele's isn't on this album, and all the drums are done by Dan Mullins. And he also recorded, he was the recording engineer, and I just don't like how the drums sound on this album. And his playing, he just seems like a guy who is not confident in his playing. The songs are pretty decent. They just kind of get taken down by him. I know Sean Taylor Steele is back in the band, last time I heard, and hopefully he will be on the next album. So I believe they are working on it right now, and that is My Dying Bride, and I hope I gave you some new stuff that you did not know about. Please leave comments and hit that like button, tell people about my channel, and thanks for watching.